point in time, he may have slowed just a little bit, which would be good if you could bring up Sky Map. And he's making an eastbound turn now onto 85th off of Central. So if they see these types of speeds down below 40 would be nice, but when they start to get up towards that 75 or 80 mile an hour mark in these neighborhoods, pulled right in front of that vehicle, that could have been a crash. That would have hurt someone if it was. Making that left turn in front of a vehicle that was coming southbound on Hooper. He's turned northbound on Hooper Avenue. Once again, we believe it's a male driver with a female passenger. The vehicle came back stolen, picked up by CHP, had been 100 miles an hour or more through the freeways of downtown LA, and then made its way into South Los Angeles off the 110 freeway southbound. We've seen it drive, the suspect and this vehicle go as fast as 80 miles an hour right through a residential area. And again, that's what is so concerning about this. You can see how closely the patrol car is following the suspect now. These types of speeds, the police don't even want to travel at this higher rate of speed in these areas because they realize how dangerous it is. If somebody pulls out in front of that vehicle, they certainly don't want to be too close at 80 miles an hour. They've got to have that cushion. And at this speed, boy, this is just so dangerous. It's frightening, actually, for the folks in this neighborhood. We're on 79th Street. We're headed back westbound. So you live in South Los Angeles. You know somebody who lives around Central, Florence, 79th Street in this area. They got kids. Get the word out to them. Get the kids in the house. There's no way of knowing how this is going to end or where this suspect is going to go. But we do know how dangerous it can be for the general public and for anybody outside. And it looks like, for the most part, the pursuit has stayed in this general vicinity of South Los Angeles, east of the 110 freeway, out towards Central, headed back westbound now on 79th towards the 110 freeway. So there's definitely a pattern. With that pattern, hopefully comes the ability of LAPD to set up a spike strip or do a pit maneuver and end this without anyone getting hurt. That really is their strategy. There's someone at the LAPD right now who is supervisor, is taking a look at everything they're doing. They're making the calls out to the officers in the street behind them. They're radioing ahead to let everybody know where he's headed. The helicopter is falling overhead. And they're doing everything in their power right now to get this to stop without anyone being hurt. But since they went to a tracking mode, and boy, this is a touchy, dicey situation here, right through a red light at Florence and San Pedro. Now turning, I believe we're going to be northbound. We'll get another street here off of San Pedro. But a supervisor is watching this, and they're doing everything in their power to try and make certain that no one gets hurt or killed as well as they can. A situation like this, it can be nearly impossible. But going to that tracking mode did nothing. They went to tracking mode, backed off all the units, and the suspect lost control of the vehicle. It may be an opportunity to stop it. And that's the thing you worry about right there, just what you saw. That vehicle, that pickup truck, is not going to be able to take corners at, right next to construction workers. That is a concern. But that vehicle, that Chevy pickup truck, is not going to maneuver that well. The center of gravity is a little bit high. And we're going to see something like that happen, I'm afraid, if he continues to drive this erratically and at this high rate. But for a moment there, it looked like the suspect was going to lose control of the vehicle. He may have swerved to hit another car behind the tree that we were watching when he drove by and almost stopped. He's making a turn here. This could be a parking lot that he cannot get out of if you open up just for a minute. I'm not certain exactly. Unfortunately, that looks like there's a way for the suspect to get out right through a driveway, right next to a sidewalk. Once again, there's another patrol car where someone could have been hurt. So, boy, we are watching right now this unfold, and it is absolutely frightening. Staying in this area of South Los Angeles, if you know someone who lives in this area, to at least get the information out to them to listen, to watch, and to make sure they keep their kids inside, and for them to stay inside. It's nearly impossible to know how this is going to end or where it's going to end, but we do have a pattern that the suspect has been following in the South Los Angeles area for the most part. And you see that speed there. We have a vehicle traveling. It just came up to almost to 70 miles an hour, but we saw it turning in front of a vehicle there, right through this intersection, turning south on Broadway. We've been on Broadway several times. But we've seen that vehicle go as high as 80 miles an hour right through a residential neighborhood, right past driveways, right past the trash cans. It looks like trash day in this area. And fortunately, we're not seeing a lot of people out on the streets, though. As you see them drive by, we don't see a lot of kids playing or riding their bikes. But at this rate of speed, just look how fast he goes past those other vehicles, up to 70 miles an hour, right through this residential area. And it'll be interesting to see as well when you have a suspect like this push in. We might be able to see a little bit. We have, according to reports, a male driver and a female passenger. But when you see a suspect driving like this that's this desperate to get away from police in a reported stolen vehicle, it makes the end of the pursuit, if it doesn't end in a crash where they're disabled, extremely tough for officers, because they're pulling into a situation with someone who's desperate to get away, with someone who could be armed, and you can tell there's a lot of movement inside that vehicle. I can't quite tell if the woman, the passenger, was actually upright there or she was just leaning to the side. But officers do not know if these two are armed, and the end of the pursuit becomes extremely difficult for them to contain as well. You want a vehicle in front, you want a vehicle behind, you want to make certain there's no one in the line of fire if, God forbid, it would get to that point where there was a shootout. But we've seen that happen before, and they have to be prepared for it. So it continues to go on. I think Jay might be able to help me out a bit. I think this may have been going on for about 45 minutes or so. All right, very good. Standing by. Yeah, this is a bad one, Philip. This is really a tough pursuit for everyone involved in this area. We're in South LA, southbound on San Pedro Street. That vehicle we believe came back as a possible stolen. There's a male driver, a female passenger, and they've been staying for the last 15 to 20 minutes right in this area of South Los Angeles along San Pedro, down to about as far as maybe 90th Street, and then coming back to the north. But unfortunately, traveling at up to 80 miles an hour on the surface street, right next to homes, right past sidewalks, almost crashed a moment ago. Going around a corner, just couldn't quite maneuver. At one time, this vehicle was up to 100 miles an hour on the 10 freeway coming out of Monterey Park through downtown. But for the last 20 minutes, it's been in South Los Angeles. And, boy, what you really worry about, this time of day, we haven't seen a lot of people out on the streets, a lot of kids, because you're always worried about that. They might be riding their bike. They might be playing. And there's just no way to avoid someone riding out real quickly in a vehicle like this, traveling at 80 miles an hour from time to time through these neighborhoods. But when the vehicle does stay in this one area, which it's done again, we're eastbound, westbound on 89th Street, and now turning on Main. For the last 20 minutes, we've been right in this area. It does allow police to get into position, and at this point, we just hope nobody gets hurt, and we hope that, they can stop this before there's a crash and that potential. They did go, Philip, to tracking mode for a bit. They pulled the patrol officers off. And unfortunately, it made no difference in the demeanor of the driver. He was still erratic and still traveling at the same speeds, so they re-engaged just a few moments ago. That's our belief. A male driver, a female passenger, that's the information we've given. And you see how many patrol cars are out now as he stays in this one area. And possible stolen. We did not get that confirmed, but we do believe when they ran the plates, it came back stolen. So when that happens, you really don't get a good gauge on who's inside the vehicle. And, boy, that's extremely important. When somebody is this desperate to get away, what's going to happen when this pursuit ends? Are they armed? There's all the types of things that police have to consider and have to think about. But since the suspect's been staying in one area, you saw a patrol car on the shoulder there, Main Street, we're headed back northbound in South Los Angeles. There are a lot of units in this area ready to try and get this stopped. There's a lot of construction going on as well, as you see there in a lot of these surface streets. So, boy, it's a real danger to the public. And as you follow these things, as we have in the past, you just really hope that no one gets hurt. But this is a frightening pursuit. It's a fairly big vehicle, fairly heavy vehicle, and you get that up to 80 miles an hour, and then, the potential someone could get hurt very easily. Well, it's really hard to say, Philip. A lot of the pursuits we followed, and they'll be in a neighborhood that they know. They'll have friends come out. We've seen that so many times, or they'll call, and people they know will be out on the streets. I haven't seen a lot of that, but certainly as you stay in the same area, and if he really knew this area and was looking for a place to ditch the vehicle and, to run and get out of the car, he's had a lot of time to do that, especially when they backed off and went to surveillance mode. So it's really difficult, but that's what makes these pursuits so challenging. Nobody really knows what's going on inside that vehicle. Nobody knows who this person is. We don't believe. The police may, but if it's a stolen vehicle, you don't get much from that plate as far as who could be the driver. So it's really difficult to know. Oh, there you go. Look at that, a spike strip, and that did the trick. We'll see if they get out. Boy, he's continuing and turning around into oncoming traffic. For a moment there, you see the patrol cars, they did not get in front of him and stop him because they thought his speed was too high. But I believe he hit a spike strip there, so we should see one of those tires at least be deflated and this vehicle start to slow down. And boy, it really gets tough to drive a vehicle at a high rate of speed if you have a flat. I believe Jay can help me a little bit. Probably about 45 to 50 minutes ago is when we actually heard about it. Started in Monterey Park on the westbound 10 at up to 100 miles an hour or higher. Went into downtown Los Angeles along the 101 for a moment, and then on to the 110 south. Yeah, boy, look at that. And can we tell if that tire's flat? I wonder if he just turned to miss the spike strip. Yeah, it looked. There's somebody out. Yeah, we're hearing that, okay, now you see a lot of people out on the streets and he's stopping. So it could be that he's letting people know. And it looks like there might be something wrong with the vehicle almost with what happened right there. Or he just gunned it and it took off and the right rear tire just started to spin. But, oh boy, there's almost a collision. That move we did hear that he made was to avoid the spike strip. And when the vehicle spun out and then he head back the other direction. But now we're seeing what I talked about earlier, all these people out on these areas, these surface streets, watching him go by. You don't know if he knows those people, if it's like this is where he lives, those are his friends, just wants recognition. I mean, sadly, we've seen that in the past. We've seen that happen. Or if it's just being broadcast, the information is out there, and people are, oh boy, there's a close one. You can tell the potential with this pursuit right now for someone to be hurt or killed if this individual doesn't just decide to get out and run. And hopefully that's the case, because then you just don't have this, this missile basically driving around South LA. Open up a bit. Open up a bit. Yeah, no, they backed off a little bit, Philip, but it's challenging no matter how you look at this, okay? They get right behind this guy so that everybody can hear the lights and sirens at 80 miles an hour, and it could be one of the patrol cars who hurts or kills someone. Boy, look right through that. It was a green light, but you could tell at high rates of speed we're back westbound. There's just no easy answer. There's no easy way to contain someone who's just desperate when it comes to trying policing the situation. You get right behind the guy, he goes faster and faster and faster, and it's almost like the police have pushed him to drive more erratically. They did back off and went to surveillance mode, but he continued to drive at 80 miles an hour and continued to swerve in and out of, the lanes into oncoming traffic, that sort of thing. So they backed off a little. Let's open up out of our shot, Tad, and see if we can tell how far back the patrol cars are. They may have gone back to surveillance mode, and that looks like what has happened. So they're back to a tracking mode. Yeah. Yeah. I won't be able to see the video, so you'll have to talk them through that. Did he stop under that bridge? Looks like he may have stopped underneath the bridge, underneath the freeway, but there's several patrol cars right behind him. Oh, there he goes. He's paralleling and he got on the on-ramp here, the access lane to the 110 southbound. So this will be interesting because last time he was on the freeway, traveling over 100 miles an hour. Obviously, the traffic is light, but there you go, top of your screen, I believe. You got him. There you go. We saw some extremely high rates of speed for this pickup truck on the freeway, but when you're on the freeway, I think it's a little different mentality as far as a strategy, as far as the police are concerned, because right now, although he's obviously a danger to the people on the freeway, it's not near as dangerous as driving at 80 miles an hour down those surface streets with construction workers, possibly kids, out on the street. At this point, even though we're seeing speeds that are probably going to be up above 100 miles an hour, probably getting close to as fast as that truck can go, because there's not much in the way of traffic. And from what I can tell out my window, it looks like smooth sailing all the way down to San Pedro to the end of the freeway. At this point, I don't think they'll get right behind the vehicle, and they're not. I can see them out the window. You won't be able to see them. Don't pull out. They're too far back. At this point, with the helicopter overhead and the fact that it's nearly impossible for the suspect to stop and get out and run, they're just going into surveillance mode. Oh, he's making a turn there. Oh, there he goes. He spun out. Looks like that. He said there's patrol cars that are behind him here. If he didn't damage, he's going into oncoming traffic, coming southbound on the 110 freeway. Holy cow, this is going to be a tough situation right here. Oh my goodness, someone could be killed here. He's northbound into the southbound lanes of the 110 freeway, and I'm just not certain how this individual is going to be able to handle this without being involved in a crash or stopping. I've not seen this before, where a pursuit turned around and went into oncoming traffic. Now, the shoulder is available. There's a truck coming towards him right now. My goodness, that's going to be a close call. And it looks like, boy, the air unit's overhead, but I don't think you're going to see any patrol cars follow this guy. Oh, boy, look at that. You can tell how close that is. That is crazy. Northbound on the 110 freeway. I think the next off-ramp might be Century Boulevard, or, well, we'll find out here in a moment. Not a lot of volume, and at this point the suspect was able to continue incredibly after spinning out, hitting that center median. Yeah.
Marianne, you're back. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Earlier this month, I joined Dr. Arwady in announcing our city's 5-phase Protecting Chicago reopening framework, outlining our plan to care